Hey guys, so today I want to do a comparison between three different headphone amplifiers and DACs. So these are combination units that combine the abilities of a DAC, which is a digital analog converter, and the abilities of a headphone amp, which is of course used up to amplify the sound for a headphone. So yeah, I have three different brands here. All these brands are well known for providing good value for the price. And we'll be looking at different price points as well. So here I have the FiiO K7. So this is the first one I'll be looking at because this one is the cheapest out of these three. It starts at $200 US, and then I have one going up $300 and then $400 from there. And I'll be connecting it to my MacBook Air so I can take full advantage of the DAC plus the abilities of the headphone amplifier. The headphones I'll be using are the Beyerdynamic T1 second generation. Because this is a 600 ohm headphone, it's usually quite hard to drive. So I really do want to test out the abilities of these headphone amplifiers here because, they got to be able to drive, very hard to drive headphones. So yeah, the Beyerdynamic T1.2s, I'll be using these. These are 600 ohm headphones, usually pretty hard to drive. And another headphone I'll be using is the HiFiMan Aria Stealth. So this is a 32 ohm headphone. Technically, on paper, it's not hard to drive, but in reality, it is hard to drive. You do need a lot of power to really open up the soundstage on these headphones, and they do benefit from scaling. So if you up the power more, these headphones will definitely benefit from it. So that's why I want to use these two headphones, because these are two of my hardest to drive headphones, the HiFiMan Arias and the Beyerdynamic T1.2s. So yeah, let's get started. So first up, I'll be using the FiiO K7, like I said. So a bit about this headphone amplifier and DAC. I actually already did a video on this headphone amp already, but just to give you guys an idea about this again. So the FiiO K7 is they're next to, not their top of the line, not their flagship desktop headphone amplifier, but it's second from the top. Their flagship is the K9, but the K7 is second from the top. It provides very good value for the price. So the specs on this, it has about 1,200 milliwatts on the single-ended output, which is the unbalanced output, and it has, I think, 2,000 milliwatts on the balanced output. And I'll be using balanced cables for both of these, so I'll be driving them using the balanced output for all these headphone amps, and actually except for this one, because this one actually does not have a balanced output. So the first headphone amp and DAC I want to talk about is the FiiO K7. So FiiO is a Chinese company. They've been making really affordable, good value audio equipment for, I think, since 2007. So yeah, I guess not a short amount of time. And yeah, they've been mostly focused on amps and DACs and digital audio players, and now recently they started to get into headphones and IEMs as well. But historically, they're known more for their DACs, amps, and digital audio players. Anyways, this is the FiiO K7. This is their second from the top, most expensive headphone amp, I guess, for desktops. So their flagship headphone amp and DAC is the K9. So this is like right the next level down after K9. So it still should be pretty good. I did a video on this one already. I feel like it's really good value for what it gets you. So basically, the DAC inside of this is it uses dual AKM, that's a Schiit Vali, AK4493 DACs. So AK4493 is considered to be generally a very top of the line DAC, and this uses two of them. In addition, it uses the THX AAA amplifier technology, which in my experience, the THX AAA amp technology results in very low distortion, which I've actually tried the Drop THX 789 headphone amplifier before, which is probably one of the most neutral, one of the most lowest distortion headphone amps I've tried. It's very black background, so very low noise, and I've always been very impressed with the THX AAA amplifier technology. So I'm happy that FiiO actually managed to include that, especially for this price, right? Usually THX AAA technology you'll find on like more expensive products. Here it's at 200 bucks, and you get like a nice DAC with it. Pretty nice. What I also like about this thing is how small, light, and portable it is. You can easily use it with your desktop. Obviously, it's meant as a desktop amp, but you can also kind of use it portably as well. So it's not going to be as portable as like a USB-C dongle or something like that, but you can just easily like put this in a backpack or something. And then if you really want like a high quality audio, you can technically put it in a backpack and just travel wherever you want, in like a hotel or even a cafe if you want. Just bring this thing out and start listening to it. Of course, it does need to be plugged into a wall wart though. So yeah, as long as you have a wall wart, you can power this. So this actually has a lot of different, well, it has a few different I/O. So it has a line in for analog. So you have your standard RCA line in input. You also have a preamp out as well. So if you want to use this just as a DAC, you can do that just by using the preamp out, and then just, yeah, you just connect to your external amplifier if you have one. Coaxial in, so it's a digital coaxial in. Optical in, so you could technically use it with your TV as well. If you want to use this as a, to amplify some speakers connected to your TV, you have some bookshelf speakers or whatever, you want to use it with them, then you can do that. But they have to be powered bookshelf speakers. Yeah, so it has a preamp out. So this is a feature you would use if you just want to use the DAC inside of this, but you have an external amplifier you want to use, so you can use this as a preamp. Then it has a digital coaxial in, and it has optical in as well if you want to connect it to your TV. So if you actually have powered bookshelf speakers, then you can technically use the optical out from your TV, pipe it through your TV into here, and then pipe it through this into your powered bookshelf monitors. So that's pretty versatile. And of course it has a USB to connect to your computer, and then the DC jack as well. In the front, it's pretty simple. Well, I guess there's a few different controls, but you basically turn up this volume dial in order to turn it on. So there's like a little click. That's basically to turn it on, and this actually has an RGB ring around it. It's kind of gamery, I guess, but they have that. And then you have the input switcher right here to switch between USB, optical, coaxial, and line. So different inputs right here. And gain, you can have low gain or high gain. I'll put it into high gain because I have high impedance headphones. And then you have low pre, LO, PRE, and PO. I just leave it on PO, but there's a few different options here. You can check with FiiO. Yeah, I think, yeah, pre is like preamp, LO is line out. So I'm not going to use the line out or the preamp, so I just set it to PO. Then you have two different headphone inputs here, one balanced, one unbalanced. So your unbalanced single-ended input is going to be the 6.35 millimeter or 1/4 inch input here. A lot of higher end headphones will come with this connector, or if you just have a 3.5 millimeter, you can always use an adapter for that. And then you have your balanced input, which is a 4.4 millimeter Pentagon, which is nowadays is pretty much the standard for the balanced connections. I mean, you also have 4-pin XLR, which is going to be for, I guess, even higher end headphones might have that, but I think 4.4 millimeter is pretty good for most people. All right, so I'll actually be using, because this amplifier right here doesn't actually have a balanced input, in order to get like a good comparison, I actually should use the unbalanced input for this. So yeah, it's just because this amplifier, which I'll talk about later, does not have a balanced input. The rest of them have balanced inputs. So yeah, in order to get a fair comparison, I'll actually be using unbalanced cables, but that'll give us a good idea of how well this thing can drive unbalanced, because usually the power for the unbalanced is like not as much, right, as the balanced inputs. But this way we can kind of test out to see what the baseline amount of power that you get from these units are. Yeah, usually the balance is going to be much more powerful for all these units, but also we can try out the unbalanced just to see what they have on tap there. Because a lot of people, like non-audiophiles, are likely to have just single-ended connectors, right? So it's, in a way, it's important to use those connectors as well. Okay, so I'll be swapping out. I'll also be trying out the balanced connectors as well, but only for these two, because these two amps are the other ones that have the balanced connections. That one does not. So all these headphone amps use the full-size USB-B connector, so they don't use micro USB obviously, and they don't use USB-C, which is the newer connection standard. They use the older full-size USB-B connector. So make sure, actually these should come with the cables. Yeah, so I actually got the connection cables for these that came inside with some of them. I think this one actually came with this cable. But yeah, you should use a USB-A to USB-B full-size connector to connect these to your computer. So that's what I'll use here. And then for my MacBook, I need to use a USB-C adapter as well, because obviously this MacBook Air does not have a full-size USB-A input. The newer MacBooks actually, I think, do. But this one, you know, it's the older MacBook, so actually no, the newer MacBooks don't. They've always been USB-C. Yeah, I was thinking of a full-size HDMI. Yeah, the newer MacBook Pros added back in full-size HDMI and a full-size SD card slot, but they did not go back to the full-size USB-A port. No, that's like a, you know, that's technically like a regression, right? They want to stick to USB-C. Alright, so I have this amp now connected to the MacBook Air, and you turn it on and then there's like some RGB lighting that happens here. You guys can see RGB lights. And yeah, I'm going to start out like this with the volume turned up to noon. And then first I'll be testing out using my Beyerdynamics. Okay, I'll be listening to a few tunes, same tunes for each to test them out. Yeah, so first is the FiiO K7 with the dual AK4493 DAC chips and the THX AAA headphone amp here. And oh, we need a 6.35mm adapter now. Alright, so I'll be using my Beyerdynamic T1.2s, and yeah, since this is single-ended, but I also need a 6.35mm adapter because this one comes with just 3.5. So yeah, I'll turn up the volume about halfway here, and let's test it out. Right, so this is the FiiO K7 with the dual AK4493 chips and the THX AAA amplifier. I'm just gonna play some music here and give you guys my impressions. Okay, so the single-ended definitely doesn't have much power. I have to really turn it up. That's better. I'm going to use the hi-fi mans now. Swap out the cables. Okay, so these are the Aria Stealths. They're definitely not as comfortable as the Beyers are. Yeah, especially with these like metal bands and stuff. Definitely not as comfortable. But the sound is pretty good on these. So, alright, let's see. The Beyers were like, the Beyers are pretty hard to drive. They're 600 ohms. So yeah, the hi-fi mans. I'll try this. Okay, they require about as much power as the Beyers actually. Alright, so this headphone amp actually has a pretty decent amount of power even on the single-ended. It has 1200 milliwatts, so that's actually enough to even drive headphones like this. Now, they're not going to drive them to the full extent that, you know, an even more powerful headphone amp might, but these are actually good enough to drive. I would say like these headphones are two of the hardest to drive that I have, but for most headphones, like even the higher end ones, like yeah, most Focals or like Audio-Technicas, yeah, up to, you know, the high-end Sennheisers or Audis or Beyers or whatever, these can drive almost every headphone under $1,000. So, and if you have a headphone under $1,000, then you probably should consider this is one of the best amplifiers for the price. $200 US. It's pretty good. Because it uses THX AAA amplifier technology, very low distortion, black background as I expected, and because it uses the AKM DAC, AK4493, it's very high resolution, high bit rate, and AKM DACs tend to have a little bit of a warm sound. That's why they call it the velvet sound. That's how AKM markets it. A little bit of a warmer sound compared to an ESS DAC, but it's okay. It's not, this one I think is fairly neutral, on the neutral side I would say. So not that warm, but it's definitely like a little bit warmer compared to your ES9038 Q2M or something like that, or ESS 9038 Pros. So yeah, overall I think this is a really nice headphone amp for the price. It can drive pretty much any headphone under $1,000 with no issues, right? And if you're getting headphones over $1,000, then that's where you might want to invest a little bit more into your headphone amp. But this is good enough for, you know, the vast majority of people, even beginner audiophiles, or if you want to go for mid-range headphone, these can drive all of them. I guess I would consider these like mid-range headphones because they're not like the top of the line. Actually, Beyerdynamic T1 is top of the line, but Hi-Fi Man, it's not like it's a Susvara or anything like that. They're not Stax headphones. You know, the Audi CRBN electrostatics or whatever. Those need a really high-end headphone amp to drive them. But yeah, I would say for the vast majority of headphones you can find under $1,000. These can drive them no issue, even on the single-ended. And if you use the balanced, of course, it's going to be even more power out of that. But generally, I'm pretty satisfied with the sound from these FiiOs. Pretty much good enough for most people. So now I'm going to be looking at another headphone amp and DAC. And actually, this is not a combined unit. This one is a separate unit. And that's because this company doesn't really make combined units. They don't make integrated units. Well, they actually do, but it's not really common for them. So this company is called Schiit Audio. A lot of audiophiles may have known this brand actually because they actually make fairly good value products, and they're actually kind of unique among the, I guess, entry-level audio equipment in a type of segment, because they're an American company and they make all their products in the US, but they're price competitive with Chinese companies like FiiO and XDuoo, which is the one I'll be showing next. So yeah, they're actually price competitive with a lot of the Chinese companies now, with FiiO or XDuoo or Topping or iFi. Like they're pretty competitive with those companies, which are all known for providing very good value for the price. But except for this company's American, and they actually make their products in the US, so it's surprising that they're able to get their costs down like that. So they don't really sell integrated amps, DACs, very often, so you have to go with the separates. And if you combine the separates together, they make you know, separate preamp, separate DAC, separate amplifier. If you combine them together, it's often called a Schiit stack. So people usually get these Schiit stacks together, and you can still get them for cheap, and they actually match them so that you can stack them on top of each other. That's why they call it Schiit stack. So these two, I got the Modi 3 Plus DAC. So this is one part of the Schiit stack is the Modi 3 Plus DAC, and I got the Vali 2 Plus tube headphone amplifier. Actually, it's a hybrid. It's not a full tube headphone amplifier, but a hybrid tube amplifier. Both of these retail for about $150 each, US. And if you combine them into, you know, the Schiit stack, if you just buy them both together, then they're about $300 in total. So I often think of these two as just a combined unit. Because, yeah, I mean, you can buy them separately, right? But in this case, I'm buying them as kind of a combined unit, and a lot of people do. And yeah, they just combine them together into one single unit and call it the Schiit stack. So yeah, the Schiit Modi 3 Plus and Vali 2 Plus. It's a pretty good headphone, like DAC, and then headphone amplifier combined together into a Schiit stack, I guess. All right. And Schiit's products are always very industrial looking, as you can see, very industrial looking. So this is the design of their products. All their products follow a very similar design. They're very industrial looking. So yeah, just no nonsense looking. Yeah, it's not pretty looking, but it's got a nice charm and appeal, I guess, in terms of industrial design, because they're, you know, they're just very high quality, and they're made of, you know, solid components, like solid aluminum, like pretty good design in terms of, you know, just looking very reliable and very durable. And actually a lot of Chinese companies follow this design aesthetic as well, like the XDuoo, which I'll be going to look at after this, has a very similar type of industrial design look to it. But yeah, all of Schiit's products have a very uniform looking design. They're all very industrial looking. So yeah, comes like this, a DAC right here and the headphone amp right here, so it just stacks on top of each other like this. And people call this a Schiit stack. And it's still, like, it's very tiny, even when you stack them on top of each other. Yeah, it's it's actually technically two products in one, and it's still takes up a very small amount of desktop space. So I think I can see why the Schiit stack is so popular among audiophiles, especially entry-level audiophiles. And comes with the Modi 3 comes with a charger right here. It's just your standard charging brick, and it takes in a micro USB actually. So it uses micro USB and gives you a charging brick, and that's basically what you get with the Modi 3 DAC. Then with the Vali 2 hybrid tube amplifier, you get this big transformer brick you have to use with it. I guess because it has to power the tubes at full voltage, so you need to have a you can't just use like something like this USB micro USB one. You have to actually use this big transformer to power the tubes, and of course they give you the tube itself. Let's take a look at this tube. Okay, so this tube is a 6N3P tube. So yeah, 6N3P. This is actually the type of tube you might use in a lot of preamps for guitars, right? Like I'm a guitarist, so we often see these types of tubes used in like as preamp tubes. But yeah, the 6N3P, you can always tube roll them, right? Just swap it out for a different tube. And you can use the 5670, 2C51, ECC42, or even the WE396A. So there's a lot of different options you can use to swap out the tubes, but yeah, the 6N3P is what they give you. And let's put this one in. Actually, all right, it just goes in like that. And yeah, it's a hybrid tube headphone amp, which means that only kind of the pre-gain section is controlled by the tube. So you get like a tube stage at the beginning, and then the actual power output stage is still solid state. So that's generally how hybrid tube amps work. In guitar amps, it's also like this. There's also hybrid tube guitar amps that work like this as well. The preamp stage is controlled essentially by the tube, and then the power output stage is controlled by solid state. So Schiit products all have a very uniform type of design. They all are designed to be very simple, like they're simple to use, and they just have a very minimalistic type of design to them. So the Modi 3 DAC, all it has on the front is an input switch. You can switch between the USB input and the coaxial input right there, and the optical input. So there's your three inputs. You can just switch between them. Just one switch at the front, that's it. For the Vali 2 headphone amp, you just have a volume dial right here, and you have a single-ended unbalanced input. So yeah, this is the one I said where I have to kind of use the unbalanced inputs for all my devices now to have a fair comparison, because this one does not have a balanced input. The balanced inputs are on their higher end headphone amps. So yeah, unfortunately the Vali 2 only has a single-ended unbalanced input, so I have to kind of use unbalanced input on all of these now. Yeah, so this is the only one out of the three that does not have any balanced input. Alright, so then for the I/O on the back, so for the Modi 3, this is the charger. So it actually uses micro USB. They haven't switched to USB-C for some reason, even though this is not that old of a model. But anyways, it uses micro USB for charging. Also uses micro USB for connecting to the computer instead of USB-C. They should just go with USB-C. I mean, these bigger ones use a full-size USB-B, I guess. But yeah, this uses micro USB. And then you have an optical input and a coaxial input right here. And yeah, these are actually, this is the output. So it's got an analog RCA out, no digital out here, just analog out, which I'll be using to connect to the Vali 2 headphone amp. So the Vali 2 headphone amp has a special kind of, this one is using this big transformer brick right here, and I think it uses this is a special adapter. So yeah, this is a special power adapter. You can tell from the unique, I guess, connector right here. So you have to use the one that they give you, unfortunately. Then you have an on switch right here. And then here is the high and low switch. So if you want to power higher gain, or actually if you need higher gain for your headphones, then you put into a high switch. And I will need higher gain because these headphones do require a lot of gain to drive. And then you have your output right here. So you can kind of use this to output to something else. And you have an input here, which is what I'll be using with the DAC. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty simple I/O, pretty simple to use, and very minimalistic type of interface. That's what this company is known for. And what's really impressive is that it's all built in the USA. So yeah, they're all assembled as much as possible in the USA. In fact, these ones are both built in Texas. So that's really cool. Corpus Christi, Texas. So I'm pretty impressed by how they managed to hit this price point while also being assembled in the US, because most of the time if you have something made in the USA, it's going to cost a lot more money. In this case, both of these combined together is $300 US. So yeah, the FiiO K7 is $200, and then just for $100 more you get a stack where basically separates, and combined together it's only $100 more. So pretty impressive. Anyways, I'll be using this to connect to my MacBook Air, and then we can kind of do the same thing. Let's do the same songs again. Okay, and then I also need another set of cables, which is the RCA cables, to connect the DAC and the amp together. So the problem with having separates, you see, is there's just a lot more cables to use now. Alright, I'm using the AudioQuest Evergreens, should be good. Alright, and then this is a tube, well, hybrid tube headphone amp. I wonder how this compares to the AAA amplifier technology in the K7s. Alright, so I think, yeah, everything is connected. I'm going to use the Bear Dynamic T1.2s and listen to the same songs again. Oh, okay. So this one also takes in a 6.35 millimeter input or 1/4 inch jack. Just be aware of that. If you have a 3.5 millimeter cable, which most people have for their headphones, you need to have an adapter for it. So yeah, just get your standard 6.35 or 1/4 inch jack adapter for your 3.5, and that's how you connect it. So yeah, just be aware for a lot of these standalone headphone amps, most of them actually take in this 6.35, and I'll turn it on here. We'll wait a bit for the tubes to warm up before playing anything. The tubes need some time to warm up, I think. Okay, you can see the filaments have been lighting up here. Okay, so now I'm going to play some songs. Right, so I have to switch it to the USB input here on the deck, and then a little bit more about the Vali 2 headphone amp, by the way. So it has 1500 milliwatts RMS per channel. Compared to the FiiO K7's unbalanced, which was 1200, this one about 1500, and it doesn't have a balanced input. So we had to go off of the unbalanced, which is pretty good. 1500 milliwatts for unbalanced is quite good, actually. So let's check it out. Yeah, this is actually a pretty decent amount of power. Nice. Okay, let me try the hi-fi mans now. Interesting. So I think that this Schiit stack here, I can see why it's pretty popular, because yeah, the Schiit Vali 2 actually does produce a decent amount of power, especially because it's single-ended input, right? So it doesn't even have a balanced input, but the single-ended input, because it outputs 1500 milliwatts, it's good enough to drive. Again, any headphone under $1,000 can be easily driven, and even these headphones, which are a little bit harder to drive, can still be driven with just the single-ended unbalanced input here. So that's pretty impressive. As for the sound itself, so this is a lower end ES90218 9018 DAC. So it's not quite as detailed or as technical as the AKM 4493 DACs in the FiiO K7, but interestingly, I think because of the hybrid tube amp in this in the design, right? It feels like a little bit more fun, energetic, exciting compared to the K7. The K7 and the THX AAA amp, like I said, very low distortion, very black background, and it's very much on the neutral side. Like, it's a little bit warm because of the AKM DAC, but not too much. It's still very much so on the neutral side. Of course, the THX 789 is even more neutral, but still, I mean, the K7 is definitely more on the neutral side in my opinion. Whereas the Schiit stack, the Modi 3 plus Vali 2 combo, I feel like it's more exciting and more energetic, more dynamic and lively, but not quite as resolving or as not quite as resolving or as detailed as the FiiO K7. So this is $300 for these two combined together. This is $200, you know, because this is integrated. But they're different, right? Obviously, if you're looking for a fun type of sound, you don't care about the technicalities, then this one is a very interesting one. It's definitely lively, fun, engaging type of presentation, but it's not going to be as resolving or as detailed or as technical as the K7. It's not going to be as neutral as the K7 either. So if you're looking for something more reference, I think the FiiO K7 is probably the better pick out of these two. But this one is a fun and dynamic listen, for sure. So very energetic. Definitely in terms of the distortion levels, it's not comparable, right? The THX AAA amp inside of here is way less distortion compared to the tube hybrid tube system that's inside of here. So anyways, it depends on what you're looking for. Something more energetic, fun, or lively, then the Schiit stack here with the Vali 2 and the Modi 3 is pretty good, and it has enough power to drive even on the unbalanced. But if you're looking for something just very technical, reference, I guess, the FiiO K7, very good. And the low distortion, of course, go for the K7. Okay, so that's the Schiit stack from a company that honestly is pretty impressive considering they make all this stuff in the US and they're priced very competitively. All their products are priced very competitively. This is actually their cheapest DAC with their cheapest headphone amp. Not their cheapest headphone amp, their second cheapest headphone amp. They actually have one cheaper than this. But this is definitely one of the cheapest tube headphone amps, given, I mean, albeit a hybrid, but still fairly cheap and affordable. So the Modi Vali stack, I think, is an interesting proposition for anyone who is looking for something, you know, $300 in that price range, and you're looking for something fun, dynamic, and lively. Then this Schiit stack works pretty well. The Vali Modi stack. In the FiiO K7, again, $200, super good value. It's cheapest headphone amp and DAC out of all these, and very good for reference quality sound, right? So tending towards the neutral, right? Neutral level. So that was pretty good for that. All right, so now I have the very last headphone amp and DAC I want to show you guys in this video. The third one in this video, it is the XDuoo TA-22. So this is the largest, the heaviest, and the most expensive amp in this video. This is $400. So yeah, the FiiO K7, $200. The Schiit Vali Modi stack, $300, and the XDuoo TA-22, $400. So we're just kind of going up the price ladder here. And yeah, this one is, it's a hybrid tube amp, just like the Vali 2, except this one has the DAC built inside. So yeah, of course the Schiit stack, you have to like kind of link up the Modi with the Vali to create that combo. But this one has a DAC built inside, and then there's a better DAC. This is a ESS 9038Q2M DAC, which is one of the highest end ESS DACs. So should be, the DAC is definitely better quality than the Modi DAC. And plus, it uses not just one, but it uses two preamp tubes. So the Vali 2 used a 6N3P tube. So the XDuoo TA-22 comes with two 12AU7 tubes. So I'm interested to see what the differences are. Also comes with a standard power cable here. I guess because the transformer is inside. So I guess the Schiit one has a transformer actually outside, and that's why it has such a beastly, I guess, power connector right here, whereas the XDuoo has a transformer, I guess, built inside. So it just uses a regular power cable. And also this one uses not micro USB, but a full-size USB-B connection. So which I think is actually better for desktop. You know, it's a more sturdy, the full-size USB-B connector is more sturdy than the micro USB. And this one also has balanced input as well, and has not just one but two balanced inputs. It has a 4.4mm balanced input and a 4-pin XLR connector as well, and 4-pin XLR is actually used on even higher end headphones usually. So yeah, pretty interesting. Actually, let me put the tubes in first. Came with these two 12AU7 tubes. I'm not sure what brand they are. They're unbranded. I guess they're branded with XDuoo. You can see the XDuoo logo on them, right? But I don't know what originally they were. They probably rebranded XDuoo. Yeah, I'm used to like Electro Harmonics, JJ, you know, those are the tubes for guitar amps actually. I think for tubes for audio equipment, probably like, I used to have some Sylvanias, some Raytheons, I think. Those types of tubes. Yeah, those are kind of tubes more for audio equipment. Alright, so yeah, this one uses two preamp tubes, but it's still a hybrid amplifier, so it still has a solid state for the power section. And that's because if you want to have like a full tube amplifier, usually those do not contain DACs inside of them. Like I used to have the XDuoo TA-26, which is a full output transformerless tube amplifier, and that one, you know, it's only a headphone amplifier. There's no DAC inside of that one. It's just full tube powered, and also the thing about those tube amps, in terms of the wattage, they don't output that many watts, although they can get pretty loud. So the amount of power that those full tube headphone amps can drive is a lot, but they're not quite as versatile compared to these hybrid ones or the solid state ones. So for example, on the FiiO K7 and the Schiit Vali 2, you have an option to have a high mode or a low mode in order to drive higher impedance, lower impedance headphones. So you can actually use them with your IEMs as well. So that's the kind of benefit of solid state and hybrid technology. Whereas with a full tube amp, you don't really have that choice. You basically just have to drive them with whatever power you get from a tube amp, which is, you know, that's usually overwhelming for IEMs and stuff. So anyways, and take a look at the XDuoo TA-22. So yeah, like I said, this is $400. It's the biggest, the heaviest, and most expensive out of all these. It is quite hefty, actually. I definitely do not want to keep holding onto this for long, but it's definitely well built. As you can tell, it's got a solid aluminum chassis right here. It's very comparable to the Schiit type of design, right? It's very industrial looking. So again, XDuoo with their no-nonsense type of design. So in the front here, pretty simple controls. You have this red knob here. This is just for volume, but you also press it in to turn on the interface. And this one actually has OLED type of display right here to kind of show you the bit rate and the source that you're using this from. So that's pretty cool. And this one has not just one, but two balanced inputs, like I mentioned. So it says 4-pin XLR as well as a 4.4 millimeter. And it has your unbalanced input, which is 6.35/1/4 inch jack, just like the rest of these have. So yeah, 3 different inputs here, 2 of them are balanced. So you have a lot of good variety of inputs here. And then on the back here, XDuoo, by the way, they're a Chinese company, just like with FiiO. They've been making audio equipment for a while, mostly amps and DACs. So of course this one is made in China as well, but as we all know, made in China, it depends on what kind of products, what kind of brand is making them. So in terms of XDuoo, they actually make a lot of really high quality products. Like, too many people have this perception that all Chinese goods are not good quality, but I mean, there's brands like Hi-Fi Man, like XDuoo, like FiiO, and if you go up even higher end, there's companies like Hi-In, which makes really high-end amps and DACs actually. All these companies make quite high quality products that are very comparable, or sometimes even better than Western brands, and they're Chinese. So I think people need to open up their minds a bit, that, you know, really depends on the brand and the amount of quality control, because good Chinese brands have good quality control as well, just like with Western brands. And in fact, a lot of Western brands manufacture their stuff in China. So yeah, that's the thing, right? It's it really depends on the brand and how much they care about the QA. Anyways, all right, so the controls on the back, it's interesting, they actually have 2 different analog outputs here. One is labeled tube and one is labeled DAC. And I think if you want to use the sound of the tube preamp stage here, but then you have an external DAC, and that's when you use the tube output here. So this one does not go through a DAC. You still need to output this through a DAC, but you get the sound processed through these vacuum tubes here. So if you want to have the tube sound, but want to use your own DAC, then use the tube output. This one, the DAC output is if you want to use the tubes and the DAC. So you want to use the built-in ES90338Q2M DAC, which is a pretty good DAC, then you can use this one. This would be normally the regular output on any other amp. Just in this one, you also have a choice of just going through the tube output stage, which is cool. Then you have an aux input, right? So if you have, say like a phono preamp, or you have vinyl records, or you have a CD player, any of those things can output analog, right, through the RCA output. So yeah, you can input those here with the aux in. You have a balanced input here, so the aux in is unbalanced, of course, but you also have the option of a balanced input. If you have more expensive equipment, usually the higher end audio equipment will actually have balanced outputs, and you can use the 2 XLR connectors here for the balanced input. And then you have a 4.4 millimeter as well. So you can either go with the 2 XLR or the 4.4 millimeter for balanced input. Usually higher end audio equipment will have balanced outputs, right? Then you have an optical input as well, so you can actually connect it to your TV, should you choose. A coaxial, and this is the USB to the computer, which, like I said, uses a full-size USB-B cable, which is, yeah, it's a little bit more durable and sturdy than a micro USB. So I would still prefer USB-C, but I guess for audio equipment makers, they prefer to use the USB-B. So, okay, and then there's an antenna here, which I think it's used for Bluetooth, because I believe this has Bluetooth as well. Yeah, I think this FiiO K7 also has a Bluetooth version, but I do not have the Bluetooth version. This XDuoo really can do everything, including having Bluetooth. So this one has analog input, balanced input, like balanced and unbalanced analog inputs, I guess, optical and coaxial, and USB and Bluetooth. It has all different inputs. The power switch right here, and this one has the transformer inside, so you don't need to carry that external brick like with the Schiit stack. So yeah. That's pretty much it. It's very well built, but very heavy, sturdy. It actually comes with these tube protectors here. So you just basically just insert them like this, and they actually protect the tubes. And this is actually very handy because not only do they protect the tubes, which are easily damaged, but if you're reaching for something like, say all these inputs are on the back, right? So you're reaching for something to like adjust a cable or something like that, or inputting cable. You don't want to accidentally brush your hand across these hot tubes. So it's nice to have these tube protectors so you don't do that. All right, so now I'm gonna hook up the XDuoo TA-22, and we're gonna check out the DAC and the amp inside of here and see how it compares. And if I actually push in this red knob here, I can actually switch between the different inputs. So I have coaxial, optical, Bluetooth, and balanced, and aux, and USB. So I can switch between all the different inputs here. I'll just stick to USB right now. Yeah, and I'll say unilink. But if I want to switch to, say the balanced, I can go to there and it'll say balanced in. All right, so it's pretty cool. This interface. All right, let's see what this thing can do. Okay, right now it's set to USB. Okay. So it tells me that's PCM right now, and 44.1 kilohertz is the bit rate I'm playing at. So it's cool. It'll tell you the bit rate as well as the the format. PCM. I guess if I play a DSD, which I don't usually play DSDs, it will show you DSD as well. Oh yeah. So the output power of this headphone amp. So for the unbalanced input, it outputs 1500 milliwatts. So that's actually about the same as the Schiit stack here. But for the balanced input, it actually outputs 3000 milliwatts. So that's more than any of these. That's more than the FiiO, of course, which is 2000 milliwatts. Obviously more than the unbalanced of the Schiit stack. So yeah, in terms of the output here, this it matches the Schiit stack for the unbalanced, and then for the balanced, it outputs more than any of these. Which I guess I expect, right? Because it is the biggest and most expensive out of these. Anyways, we're going to try the unbalanced, 1500 milliwatts. Actually, it will be interesting to compare between this and the Schiit stack, because this one, technically does have the same output power. Right. All right, pretty good. I'm going to go for the hi-fi mans now. Nice. So yeah, the XDuoo TA-22 is definitely a really nice headphone amplifier and DAC. So it's interesting compared to the Schiit stack. The tonality, I would say this one has kind of the liveliness and energetic kind of response that the Schiit stack has, but it also has the detail of the FiiOs. And the soundstage is larger than both. So I hear a slightly bigger soundstage, and the details, like I said, the Schiit stack doesn't have as much detail as the K7, but this one does. This one has as much detail as the K7, and it's also warmer. The Schiit, I felt like the Schiit stack is slightly warm, but it's not like that much warmer than the AKM DAC inside of the K7. Whereas the TA-22, I definitely felt like this one, I can hear that tube sound. Even though it's a hybrid, I know it's not a full tube amp, but I can still hear, that tube sound, right? It's that warm kind of, tube sound that you would associate. I definitely hear it in TA-22 more so than the Schiits. Even though the Schiits have an output tube as well, this one maybe because it's two, I can definitely hear the more warmth in this one. Yeah, compared to the AKM DAC and to the tube preamp in the Schiit Vali too, I can definitely hear this one is definitely the most tubey out of all of them. But I can also hear more detail as well. It's not going to have the technicality like the low distortion of the K7 because this is a fully solid state one. This is using a THX AAA amplifier, you know, not much distortion, fully solid state. So this is not going to have as black a background as the K7, but it is definitely really energetic, dynamic, just like the Schiit stack is, but with more of a bigger soundstage and more detail. And you have more warmth as well because of the tubes. So I would say it's kind of like that. They're all kind of different in a subtle way. So in terms, I would say the best bang for the buck is still probably the FiiO K7. If you're looking for something with the least amount of distortion and the very black background, and you know, very good sound because it's using a top-end AKM DAC. For 200 bucks, this is still the best bang for the buck. Is the FiiO K7, right? Very reference quality, close to neutral, headphone DAC and amp, and yeah, very low distortion. And a good amount of detail and technicality, right? Very resolving stuff. The Schiit stack with the Vali and the Modi is very fun and lively, energetic, but doesn't have the detail or of the K7. So because it's not going to have as low distortion either because it's using partly tubes. So yeah, I would say get this one if you're looking for something a little bit more fun and exciting. But if you just, I guess if you care about your desktop space, this one makes sense as well. I was going to say, like, if you pay 100 bucks more and you go into the XDuoo TA-22, you get everything from the Schiit stack, but you get more soundstage, more detail, and you get more warmth from the tubes. So it's basically just an expanded, better version of the Schiit stack, but it is bigger and heavier. So there is a reason to choose the Schiit stack over this, right? This is cheaper. It's $100 cheaper than the XDuoo, and it takes up less space. This one is heavier and is bigger, takes up more space. But you know, it is, I would think, in terms of, you know, if you want your sound to be lively and fun, you have that, but you also have the detail and bigger soundstage, and you also have more tube warmth basically. So yeah, it really depends on what you're looking for. So I guess that's my verdict here. The FiiO K7 is still the best bang for the buck out of all these in terms of just pure sound quality. You know, no comparison in terms of the value, right? The FiiO K7 for 200 bucks is great. But if you're looking for something more fun than the K7, but still take up, you know, a little, not much space, just like the K7 is very portable, and the Schiit stack is also very portable, doesn't take up that much space, but you're looking for a different sound signature, if you're looking for something more fun, exciting, like, you know, it doesn't have as much tube sound to it, but definitely is more of a fun listen than the Schiit stack. With the Vali and the Modi is the way to go. But if you're looking for something more tubey than this, and more soundstage and more detail, then you can splurge for XDuoo TA-22, which is actually just 100 bucks more. I say splurge, but there's actually, you know, many more expensive amps and DACs than this. This is 400 bucks. So the XDuoo definitely has more power than the other amps here. So if you're looking for just, you know, the most power, especially out of the balanced, out of the balanced output, this outputs what, 3,000 milliwatts, right? So if you have really hard to drive headphones, or you just want to push headphones like the Hi-Fi Mans even further, open up the soundstage even more, then this one is the way to go. And I think that's why I felt more soundstage from this one, is because this one does have more power. So yeah, I haven't tried the balanced actually, but if you try the balanced, it's really going to push the soundstage open for a lot of headphones like this, and for the Bears as well. So yeah, if you have hard to drive headphones or planar magnetics that are hard to drive, then this one is probably the way to go. It definitely has the most power on tap. And if you're looking for something very fun, energetic, lively, so basically all the qualities of the Schiit stack, but you're looking for even more soundstage, even more power, and you're looking for that tube warmth, and this is pretty much it. Yeah, basically if you want to have the sound of the Schiit stack, but you want to have more power, more detail, and more of a tubey type of sound, because the Schiits actually don't sound that much like tubes. It's like a slightly warm, but this one is definitely noticeably more warmer. Then yeah, pick up the XDuoo TA-22. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I would say that each of these headphone amps and DACs have something to offer at their respective price points. So if you're looking for like $200 or $300 or $400, I think these are among the best values you can get at that price range. So very comparable to similar offerings from Topping or iFi or Parasound, right? Whatever other company you're looking for in that price range. I think these products are very comparable to them. So that's it, guys. Really depends on your budget and what you're looking for. So yeah, I hope you guys got something from this video. I'll do a sound test after this as well to show you guys the difference in the sound through the headphones and do a recording. So yeah, let me know what differences you guys hear. So yeah, that's it, guys. Like always, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section below what you think, and stay tuned for the sound comparison test. Alright, so what's cool about the XDuoo TA-22 is that they actually have two different outputs here for analog output. So there's two aux out. One of them is called tube and the other one is called DAC. And that's actually very flexible and versatile because it can use the tube out if you still want to use the tube stage, because this does have two vacuum tubes here, right? It's a hybrid headphone amplifier. So if you want to get that tube sound, right, which is a kind of warm, organic tone that people associate with tubes, you can use that and just use the output stage of the tube, and then you can pipe it out to a DAC. So if you have an external DAC, then you can use the tube output stage here just to get that tube sound. In this DAC output stage, you can use if you have an external amplifier, right? If you want to use the DAC inside this headphone amp slash DAC, which is actually pretty decent DAC. It's an ESS ES9038 Q2M, pretty decent high-end ESS DAC. Then you can just use this DAC output if you have an external amp. So yeah, it's very flexible, very versatile. So I like that XDuoo will give you this option. Most headphone amps only have one aux output, right? But this one gives you a flexibility of two. So usually when it comes to guitar amps, at least, which I'm pretty familiar with, the tubes usually come from companies like JJ, Sovtek, Electro Harmonics, Tungsol. But yeah, these tubes, it doesn't seem to have any kind of branding. It's just like their own tubes branded from somewhere, so I'm not sure where they're made. I'd be curious to see where they actually came from though. Also, this XDuoo amp comes with a warranty. So it's a warranty for 1 year. Now, it's a Chinese company, so I'm not sure. Even if you have to send it in for warranty, I think you got to send it back to China, right? But yeah, they do have a warranty here for 1 year. And then they do have an instruction manual here as well. So, and it's actually not all in Chinese. There's an English section as well. So yeah, high performance tube DAC and amp. So they do have English instructions here, which is really cool. And actually, some things I missed on the specs here. So it has a USB audio decoder using the XMOS XU208 chip, supports up to PCM 32-bit 384 and DSD256. Also supports MQA rendering as well, if you have any MQA files. I don't, but yeah, some people do. And the optical coaxial input can support up to 24-bit 384 kilohertz and DSD128. The Bluetooth supports aptX, HD, and LDAC. So it supports all the major lossless Bluetooth formats, which is nice. Well, not lossless, but HD formats. And yeah, two ES9038 Q2M DACs are used, which is nice. So the ES9038 Q2M are almost their flagship. I think their flagship is the ES9038 Pro, but that's close to their flagship. And yeah, and it's got two 12AU7 tubes, a little bit different than the Schiit stack that we just saw. The OLED screen is a 3.12 inch. And yeah, that's about it. But the rest of them, you can see the little diagram here. Pretty cool that they have it in English, not just in Chinese, because I was afraid that it would only be in Chinese, given that you know, I've dealt with a lot of these Chinese audio products before, and sometimes they just don't really give you many instructions in English, but it's cool they have a full English guide as well.